Unexpected call revealed. Abandoned black girl discovers her billionaire dad after 17 years. It came during the hum of the diner, that midday lull punctuated by the clinking of cutlery and tired laughter among locals. Amara sat in her usual booth, sketchbook propped against the faux leather table, capturing the essence of her small town, a place where dreams often crumbled beneath the weight of everyday struggles. She poured herself into her art, letting each stroke of graphite express her quiet rebellion against the life that often felt like shackles. The phone buzzed, an unfamiliar number flashing across the cracked screen. A knot twisted in her stomach, a mixture of dread and curiosity. As she answered, a deep voice introduced itself as a private investigator. Amara's heart raced. Her estranged father, the very man who had woven a thread of absence through her life, was now a billionaire CEO wanting to reconnect after 17 years. Confusion washed over her, emotions bubbling to the surface. Anger at the years stolen, disbelief at the audacity of the man who had left her behind, and a flicker of hope that maybe she was more than just a forgotten child. What would he want from her? Would he acknowledge the struggle her grandmother endured raising her alone? The weight of his neglect loomed larger than the potential of silver linings she couldn't yet see. It was a terrible contradiction. She had flourished in the embrace of her grandmother's teachings of endurance and hard work, yet beneath that foundation, the shadows of abandonment loomed, stifling her dreams. In the days leading to their meeting, mental conflict turned over in her mind like a stormy sea. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The image of her father's life played over and over in her mind. Extravagant parties, luxury cars, opulence lining his every waking moment. Would he even recognize her as his daughter? The thought settled uncomfortably in her heart, twisting like an old wound. At the same time, Amara felt an unsettling sense of empowerment bubbling in her core, a chance to reclaim the narrative he had discarded so easily. As the day of their meeting dawned, anxiety wrapped around her tightly, constricting her thoughts. The sleek high-rise loomed ahead like a giant, a stark contrast to the quaint nature of her southern roots. Each step toward it felt heavier. The elevator ride felt suffocating. Meeting him felt like confronting a ghost, a figure shrouded in mystery and privilege. When she finally stood before him, the air thick with unspoken words, that same mixture of admiration and resentment churned inside her. But as their conversation began, she noticed the uncanny similarity between their emotional distances. Beneath the surface of wealth, he too was estranged from his own life's richness, an unsettling reflection of her own existence. The tension set her jaw tight, and with each question she posed, barriers between them seemed to dissolve, yet form new ones. She insisted on his acknowledgement, not just of her as his daughter, but as a person, grappling with the void his absence had etched into her life. Would he rise to meet her challenge, or would this turn into just another disappointment? As the conversation reached a crescendo, the realization struck her. The depth of his detachment mirrored her lingering emotions of anger and longing. The stakes were higher now. She battled not just for herself, but for the essence of a connection she had longed for in a world where he was the illusion of a father. The clock ticked ominously, the tension threatening to explode. Amara stood at the precipice of her decision, teetering between the allure of newfound wealth and the authenticity she craved, a choice that would redefine what family truly meant in her life. The silence that followed felt like an eternity, wrapping around them both, heavy with unsaid words. Amara could see the flicker of uncertainty in her father's eyes, a chink in his polished facade. Did he expect her to be grateful for his presence? The urge to push back surged within her, to lay bare the scars left by his absence. Why now? Amara's voice cut through the tension, sharper than she intended. Why, after all these years, do you want to be part of my life? Her father shifted uncomfortably, as if her question had shattered the carefully crafted narrative he had prepared. It's complicated, Amara. I never meant for it to be this way. Complicated doesn't cover it, she interrupted, her heartbeat quickening. Do you think I'm just going to let you walk back in, give me a few token words, and then disappear again? That's not how this works. The resolve in her voice surprised even her. She had spent so long fearing rejection and being molded by the past that now, standing in front of him, her conviction surged forth like a tidal wave. The life lessons imparted by her grandmother echoed within her, buoyed by an unforeseen strength. I didn't know how to reach out, he admitted, a glint of remorse flickering across his face. I thought it best to allow you to grow without my influence. Without your influence? Her laugh was bitter. Is that what you call abandoning me? I had to grow up in a world that had no place for me, and now you want to dictate how I feel about that? The confrontation hung in the air. This was her moment, not just of vulnerability, but also of empowerment. It was a line drawn in the sand, a test of wills. Amara could feel the gears of her mind shift, each revelation about her father morphing their interactions dynamic. I'm not expecting anything from you, he finally responded, his tone almost pleading. If you want to be angry, I understand. I just want to learn about the woman you've become. But there was a catch in his words, a faint echo of self-interest. Did he genuinely seek connection, or was he simply attempting to ease his own conscience? The distinction mattered immensely, and Amara felt the weight of expectations settle like a boulder on her shoulders. Understanding goes both ways, she said, deliberately choosing her next words. You don't just get to sit there and play the part of the concerned father. If you want to know me, you have to face me. With each exchange, the dynamics evolved. His power became a burden, and her anger morphed into assertiveness. This new realization became a catalyst for thought. She held the decision in her hands. How she engaged would not only impact her relationship with him, but also redefine her own identity. He nodded slowly, acknowledging her stance. I respect that, but how do we start? The question lingered, opening the door to possibilities. A burgeoning sense of purpose ignited within her. She had held and nurtured the dreams birthed from loss, the art that kept her design alive and breathing still. Perhaps this was an opportunity to weave in a new thread, one that connected her past with her potential future. I need time, Amara said carefully, recognizing her own need for clarity. And boundaries. I won't pretend everything's okay. I have to figure out what this means for me. Above all, she was determined to confront each day with newfound clarity, unafraid to challenge the complexities of her past. As she stepped away from that meeting, she felt the weight lessening. A battle not yet won, but the fight undeniably begun. And in that moment, a flicker of anticipation ignited within her. Perhaps this was not the end, but the beginning of her greatest chapter yet. Yet, lingering in her mind was one burning question. Would she be strong enough to confront the legacy he represented, or would she find herself entangled in his world of privilege, losing sight of her own identity? With those thoughts echoing insistently, Amara realized she was poised on the brink of something transformative. But could she navigate this precarious path without losing herself along the way? Days passed since that weighty conversation with her father, each one marked by a mix of resolve and uncertainty. Amara felt like a tightrope walker, balancing the past scars and the possibilities that lay ahead. The city buzzed around her as she found solace in the rhythm of her routines, her design work, evening classes, and cozy corners in coffee shops that felt inexorably hers. Yet, beyond the facade of daily life, the questions about her identity loomed large. What was it to be part of a family one had never known? Already the fragility of her self-esteem made her wary of all that her father's presence represented. Was she somehow less for having grown distant from her own roots, or was that distance a strength that carved out her individuality? Each time she pulled out her sketchbook, the faint strokes of her childhood memories colored the page. Those sketches bore her dreams, but they also reflected the anger that festered beneath her artistic expression. In search of clarity, Amara began some deliberate introspection. The studio she worked from was a sanctuary filled with colored fabrics and templates, her chosen dimension where dreams transformed into reality. It was here that she decided to create a piece that would not only express the tumult hidden in her heart, but also explore the intersection between her past and the immediate chaos of her recent encounters. As she assembled her materials, she questioned what her feelings toward her father truly were. Would forgiveness come naturally, or would it require a fabricated facade? Time had never erased the bitter flavors of abandonment, and as the threads intertwined in her hands, she felt the divide within her begin to mend, but only partially. That evening, as twilight blended into shade, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Lucy, her closest confidant. It burst forth with enthusiasm. "Art show next week, you in?" Amara hesitated. The event buzzed with the possibility of new opportunities in the industry, but also carried the weight of public scrutiny. Her instinct told her to shy away. What would people think of her inexperienced self among so many established names? But then she thought of the commitment she had just made, to understand herself better, to accept both the light and the darkness of her history. Here was a chance to put her artwork on display, to confront her struggles head-on. "I'm in," she typed back, her fingers trembling with anticipation. In the days leading up to the show, Amara poured her heart into the piece, channeling her emotions into every stroke, every decision of color. The canvas became a dual reflection of her struggles, her mother's grace rooted in resilience, and her father's absence echoing perilously through her design. But that absence no longer felt like a barrier. It was an opportunity to redefine her creative voice. On the night of the show, she stood beside her work, heart racing, surrounded by people whose lives interlocked in varying degrees with the art world. Conversations flowed around her, and despite her anxiety, she felt an electric connection with those who were genuinely moved by her piece. Vibing under the attention, Amara found herself speaking with conviction, revealing pieces of her story, a tapestry of hope woven through threads of hurt. However, just when she began to relish being seen as an artist, she caught sight of a familiar silhouette through the vibrant crowd. It was her father, a stark contrast to the warm chaos of the art show. A shiver shot through her, igniting a fierce wave of turmoil. Could she face him here, in this space where she had just begun to nurture her authenticity? Would it be a chance for newfound connection, or a moment that exposed the fissures of her heart? As he approached, Amara's focus narrowed, thoughts spiraling. The path she'd chosen was fraught with risks, but in that moment she realized the decision was hers to make. Would she confront him here, or retreat to safety behind the art that represented her courage? With her heart pounding, she stood tall. This was her story, her design, and she wouldn't shy from it. The moment of truth waited just ahead, each second a breath drawn closer to destiny. Would speaking her truth see her liberated, or would it unearth feelings she was not yet ready to confront? Amara's breath caught in her throat as her father approached, his presence inexplicably commanding the bustling atmosphere around them. She could feel eyes shift, the temporary sparkle of excitement dimmed by her internal tempest. This was it, the critical moment where years of unresolved feelings converged into one palpable intersection. As he stepped closer, his apprehensive smile flickered between warmth and uncertainty. "Amara," he said, his voice carrying an edge of nostalgia. It was the first time he had uttered her name, but beneath the familiarity was the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. 1,000 choices danced through her mind. What should she say? Time felt suspended as she processed her emotions, wrestling with the conflicting urge to flee and the equally potent need to confront the past. Instead of retreating to the comfortable distance of her artwork, she chose to meet him halfway. "Why are you here?" The sharpness of her question hung heavy in the air, layered with the myriad of emotions she had been navigating for weeks. "I wanted to see your work," he began, his eyes scanning the canvas that spoke volumes of both her pain and her resilience. "I wanted to know you." A rush of indignation surged through her. "And now you do? Is that how you make up for lost time?" He flinched, the hurt registering in his eyes. "It's not that simple," he replied, his voice lowering. The crack of his facade only intensified the turmoil in her heart. Amara could feel the crowd around them fade. Their conversations turned into a dull silence as she focused on him, on the man who had once been an absence in her life. "What do you expect from me?" she challenged, a mix of curiosity and anger bolting through her. "Do you think you can just show up and everything is, fixed?" As she spoke, her heart thudded louder, a tangible representation of her struggle, fear, fury, and the smallest hint of hope all vying for dominance. She was finally taking agency over her narrative, pushing against the pull of the past as she carved out the contours of her new identity. "I'm not here to fix everything. I just want a chance to understand you," he replied, his gaze earnest. But Amara felt nothing but skepticism. Wasn't that what people always said? The same words slipped like fluid through cracks, promising everything, yet delivering hollow sentiments of regret. "Understand me?" she echoed incredulously. "You don't even know who I am. You left me. You don't get to decide you want to be involved now that I'm this?" She gestured vaguely around the room, at the buzzing artists, the applause, at the version of herself she had constructed against all odds. Seeing the pain ripple across her face struck her father silent. She could sense the swell of empathy mingling with his own remorse. In that moment, Amara recognized something profound. Her own capacity for forgiveness was the very tool needed to shape her future, however fraught it might be. Taking a deep breath, she decided on a different approach. "I will not hide behind my art, nor will I become some figure to fulfill your expectations," she stated, her voice steady. "If you want a second chance, you have to show up, fully." His nod was small but significant, embedded with understanding. "I'm willing to try." Amara felt the chaos of emotions swirl within her, a mix of resentment, cautious optimism, and a fierce desire for autonomy. She stood on the precipice of a journey, one that would navigate uncharted territories. The foundation she was building was not just about her art, but about crafting a new relationship grounded in honesty and choice. But as they spoke, she sensed a crucial difference in herself. She was no longer simply defined by her father's absence or presence. She was an artist, a creator of narratives, and her new chapter hinged on emancipation from the stereotypes of familial bonds. Yet, just as resolve began to settle within her, a shriek pierced through the air. A nearby artist's exhibit had collapsed, sending up a cloud of chaos that exploded through the gallery. Amara turned abruptly, adrenaline surging again, her heart racing not just from confrontation, but from the thundering pulse of the unexpected. As she moved to aid the commotion, uncertainty loomed again. Back in that very moment, was she ready to lay down the walls, or would she retreat to the safety of her art? With her father still standing close, Amara felt the ground shift beneath them both, forcing her to wonder if this incident might transform everything anew. What awaited would test not just her artistic instincts, but the very fabric of her choices. Before she could turn around, she sensed the winds of change drawing her deeper into the fray of her life. Could she allow herself to embrace the chaos and confront these new obstacles? The questions bore into her mind as she emerged into the swirling uncertainty that beckoned just ahead. Amara's mind raced as she plunged into the thickening cloud of chaos. The exhibit had transformed from a celebration of artistry into a tableau of panic, and amidst the shouts and scrambling bodies, she felt a surge of determination. This was not the moment to retreat into her art, it was the defining moment to navigate the turmoil that echoed her own unresolved emotions. She spotted a group of artists huddled around an overturned display, expressions fraught with worry. Amara's heart pounded as she broke into action, her instincts sharpening amidst the cacophony. In her past, she would have hesitated, paralyzed by the weight of uncertainty. Now, however, her choices felt tangible. Each step she took gave rise to a clear path of engagement. "Help me lift it," she shouted, galvanizing the nearest artists. They rallied around the fallen exhibit, grasping at the sturdy edges, their faces stricken, yet determined. In that splintered moment of collaboration, she felt a flicker of camaraderie bloom. This was collective chaos ordering itself under a shared purpose. In a surprising way, it was reflective of her own turbulent journey toward self-discovery. As they hoisted the display back, Amara caught a glimpse of her father, striding alongside her. His expression transformed from dejection to proactive engagement as he joined in at her side. "We need to secure that area," he called out, breaking through the haze of her thoughts. His voice, rich with authority, sparked a nascent decision within her. She could allow him to be part of this unfolding narrative, while holding fast to her own agency. "Let's move the crowd to the other space," Amara suggested, taking charge. "If we can clear everyone out, we can assess the damage and plan the next steps." She felt the rush of her own authority as they transferred to safer grounds, the adrenaline sharpening her. Once the crisis began to de-escalate, she saw a glimmer of her father standing apart from the crowd, silhouetted against the backdrop of the crashing waves of disruption. Even with the chaos still palpable, there was a profound shift within her. While external circumstances swirled chaotically, she could still choose how to perceive her world and her father's place within it. This is art too," she said to him as they stood on the sidelines, catching their breath. "The way we navigate through the chaos, the beauty we create in response." His gaze held the weight of confession, as if he felt the canvas of their relationship dimmed but not yet painted over. "I didn't want to disrupt your moment," he admitted, searching her eyes for acceptance. Amara hesitated, that familiar pang of doubt grasping at her heart. Did she still want this connection? Did she want to tear down the protective walls she had built so carefully over the years? But instead of retreating, she confronted those fears head-on. "This is who I am today," she said, "the artist who embraces the unknown." His eyes widened, breaking through the encasing walls of guilt he had carried. It was a revelation that painted their conversation in colors of vulnerability and possibility. Yet, as they conversed, the faint sound of sirens filled the air, a harbinger of not just authority arriving, but implications of deeper issues. Would they be scrutinized for the collapse? Would their roles risk further exposure of their fragile relationship? Amara's mind shifted into overdrive as plans formed like brushstrokes against the canvas. She needed to establish boundaries within this burgeoning connection, protect her identity while still allowing space for growth. With her father standing close, she faced another pivotal choice: sail into the unknown together, or assert her autonomy amidst the unease of their current circumstances. "We should talk more about us, but we owe it to ourselves to approach this carefully," she continued, the tension between urgency and caution crackling in the air. As tensions rose externally, internally, she felt the swell of clarity emerge. This was her unfolding narrative. The swirl of chaos had ignited a fire within her to construct deeper meaning in her life, fueled by confrontation and clarity. But just as she gathered breath to continue, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket, interrupting her resolve. An unknown number flashed on the screen, an urgency vibrating through the device. Against the backdrop of disarray, it was a stark reminder that her journey had twists yet to reveal. Amara's heart raced anew. What awaited on the other end of that call? An unexpected connection she had not anticipated could reshape everything she thought she understood about herself and her future. Only one way to find out. Amara's breath quickened, her pulse hammering in her ears as she stared at the phone screen. Instinctively, she pressed the device closer to her trembling fingers, peering at the unknown number as if it held the key to her future. The chaos of the earlier incident seemed to fade into the background, replaced by the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Did she dare answer? The sirens continued to wail, a discordant reminder that the world outside remained tumultuous. But in that moment, Amara felt an unexpected desire to reclaim control, not just over the situation around her, but over her story, her narrative. It was time to stop living in the shadows of her past. It was time for clarity. With a decisive flick of her thumb, she accepted the call. "Hello?" The word came out steadier than she felt, though her heart threatened to leap out of her chest. "Amara?" The voice on the other end was deep and smooth, laced with an unfamiliar warmth. A chill ran down her spine. "Who is this?" "It's Marcus. We need to talk about your father," he said, and everything inside her froze. The last few syllables hung like heavy fog in the air. Her mind reeled. This couldn't be what she thought, facing the specter of the man who had chosen absence over presence. Why? What does he want? Amara couldn't suppress the tremor in her voice. "Things have changed," he continued. "You need to know the full story, and he's ready to be honest now." Just then, her father glanced at her, a question in his eyes mingling with concern. Amara bit down on her lip. The churning emotions from their earlier conversation collided with the implications of this call. If she embraced this opportunity, how would it reshape the fragile connection she began to navigate? "Why now?" The question slipped out, harsh with the bewilderment of years spent grappling with abandonment. "There were mistakes made, Amara, heavy ones," Marcus replied, his tone shifting to something softer. "But you deserve the truth." She hesitated, weighing this revelation. Amara had always yearned for validation, for an understanding of her origins beyond the art she cultivated. But how could she trust after years of silence? Is he ready to step up, to take responsibility? The weight of her words hung heavily between them. "Yes," Marcus said firmly, "but he can't do it alone. You have to want this too." Amara could feel the pressure of the moment weighing down on her, the stakes climbing higher. This was no longer about just her art or her father's absence. This was about building bridges to uncharted territories, even if they were fraught with potential hurt. Slowly, the resolve within her began to strengthen. "Set up a meeting," she said, her voice firmer than it had ever been. "I want to hear him out." She hung up, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. The sirens outside had faded into a low hum, and all that remained was the beating sound of her heart, a rhythm that pulsed with purpose. She looked at her father, who waited, a mixture of hope and hesitation playing across his features. "Amara," he began, but she raised a hand to stop him. "Let's talk," she said, choosing her words carefully as a new realization dawned upon her. This moment, this tumultuous path, was hers to navigate. She could endure the possibilities of hurt and connection that awaited ahead, carving out a space for her identity amidst the uncertainties. What lay behind their fractured past could not remain unexplored. The only way would be forward. But as she began to articulate her thoughts, a sharp ping from her phone interrupted her train of thought. Another message, another twist waiting to unfold. What more did Marcus know, and how deep did the layers of her father's absence go? That question lingered in the air, waiting to ignite the next unraveling of Amara's identity. The weight of impending revelation pressed heavily against Amara as she returned her focus to her father, whose expression appeared both relieved and anxious. The prospect of delving into their past unsettled her, but a flicker of determination ignited within. Every moment spent pushing beyond the comfort of ignorance felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. The air in the room seemed thick with unspoken words, and her father fidgeted, awaiting her cue to speak. "I know, this is not easy for either of us," he finally ventured, his voice tinged with a mixture of regret and hope. "But I want you to be part of this conversation, this change." "Change," she echoed, turning the word over in her mind. Was it really possible? Could this be the moment that transformed years of longing into something tangible? "You can't just ask me to accept you back. I need to understand why you left," Amara said, her tone firm yet vulnerable. His eyes darkened, shadows of the past haunting their depths. "There were reasons, difficult ones, but I've carried that weight for too long. I want to make amends, to help you craft the future you deserve." Crafting a future, she liked the sound of that. Yet, as she took stock of her life up to this point, the shadows of his absence loomed larger than any apology could mend. "Do you even know who I've become, or have you just come to realize your mistakes?" she challenged, pressing him. The moment felt suspended in time, every heartbeat amplifying the tension. Her father's brow furrowed, and she saw a flicker of sorrow pass over his face. "I've watched you grow from afar. I always wanted to be there, but life took me down a different path." "Life's path," she rolled the phrase over her tongue, tasting the bitterness of discretion. "You make it sound so casual, like it was just fate. But you made choices, didn't you? You chose to leave." Every syllable felt like a jagged shard, revealing not only her anger, but also her pain. It spurred an openness within her, urging her to confront the boundaries of their relationship, a boundary her father's absence had starkly defined. "Yes," he admitted, his shoulders sagging, "and I promise you, I will share everything if you give me a chance." Amara hesitated, her mind swirling with swirling uncertainties. She had spent so long creating a narrative of independence, one that thrived despite her father's silence. But now she was standing at a precipice, peering into the possibilities laid out before her. Drawing a deep breath, she began recalibrating her thoughts. "Meeting with Marcus might provide context, but it won't change how I feel about any of this." Her voice softened, emotion layering her words. "I'm scared of what this really entails." "Honestly, so am I," he replied, the mask of authority slipping away. "But we're both here now, and that has to mean something." Amara felt a slight shift within herself. The cracks in both their facades began to form pathways toward understanding. Both were still learning to navigate the convoluted terrain of their relationship. If she had learned anything from her artistry, it was that creation often emerged from chaos. As the conversation began peeling back layers of fear and hope, another ping from her phone sliced through their exchange. Her heart raced at the familiarity of uncertainty. It was a message from Marcus, urgent, demanding. She glanced at her father, then hesitated before unlocking her phone to read it. "Amara, you need to prepare yourself. The truth can be shocking." Panic flared in her chest. The promise of answers now felt precariously close, yet tinged with potential pain. Could she really face the raw truth? What more could she learn about her father? What hidden dimensions of her identity remained unexplored? The prospect of discovering more about her lineage loomed large, coloring her vision with trepidation and resolve. One thing was certain: the journey ahead promised to be both daunting and transformative. As the possibility of betrayal mingled with the glimmer of connection, she knew she was knocking on doors long sealed. With each passing moment, the truth waited just beyond reach, ready to unravel everything she thought she understood. And with that lingering thought, Amara understood. There would be no turning back now. The text message from Marcus pulsed with gravity, a digital herald of the chaos to come. A shiver danced down Amara's spine, a blend of fear and a stubborn flicker of curiosity. Could this truth she was about to confront redefine everything she thought she knew? Her father shifted in his seat, eyes drifting toward the window as if seeking answers from the world outside. The sunlight streamed in, illuminating a dust-moted path that twisted and turned beyond their small living room. Each ray felt like a countdown, urging Amara to break free from her chokehold of hesitation. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice breaking the silence that had enveloped them again. He turned back towards her, surprise fleeting across his features. "I am," he replied, perhaps attempting to convince himself as much as her. "But I know you're not. I can see that you're fighting something deep inside." "Fighting?" she scoffed. "Maybe wrestling with the reality that you're here, and everything I thought I'd known is slipping away as quickly as the light changes in this room." Her heart raced, each beat firing up feelings of anger mingled with lost hope. "We can navigate it together," he said, a steadiness creeping back into his voice. "But it will require a commitment from both of us, an openness to face what's ahead." Amara drew in a sharp breath, each inhale laced with an emotional fragility that had begun to unravel all her carefully constructed defenses. "What do you even know about commitment?" she spat, the words escaping with a venom she hadn't intended. "You walked away from me." A heaviness settled between them, leaving the air stagnant. The comfortable silence they'd shared earlier morphed into an abyss of unresolved emotions. Perhaps it was this gnawing pain that triggered a different kind of resolve within her, one that pushed her to confront her past head-on. Biting back the swell of tears, she focused on the device in her hands. This phone could unveil secrets, could deliver the untamed truth that lay hidden behind the walls of her father's regrets. But was she ready to unearth those buried elements of her identity? "Marcus wouldn't text me without reason. There's something he knows." The tension in her voice gave way to a desperate urgency as she punched the screen to respond. "Amara," her father interrupted, "waiting for the truth won't alter what has been, but embracing the uncomfortable might lead you somewhere meaningful." She locked eyes with him, feeling the weight of his gaze. Would she find empowerment in chasing answers, or would this journey render her powerless? The stakes could not be higher. "Marcus said it can be shocking," she murmured, almost to herself. The very reality of her father now stood layered over the possibility of her lineage, the lineage she'd previously associated only with mystery and absence. But recognizing the power of choice surged within her. As shadows danced around them, she grappled with the thought that this time it was her turn to overcome the odds, to assert her voice and agency. There was a profound truth in this moment. The choices they made now would dictate their paths forward. With renewed determination, Amara tapped out a quick message, her heart thudding in rhythm with the rhythm of the moment. "Marcus, tell me everything." A gentle breath escaped her father's lips. "Whatever you learn, remember that change begins with understanding." A buzzing anticipation filled the air, a tension that flickered between hope and trepidation, draining her of stability yet propelling her toward the unknown. Just as her phone illuminated with Marcus's rapid response, promising insights and clarity, it brought an unsettling reality. The path of revelation had been ignited, and Amara understood that as she unlocked this door, she was stepping into a newfound dimension of her existence. Could confronting the past uncover strengths she had yet to discover? The process of unraveling who she really was only beginning, and the storm of discovery awaited her. "Brace yourself," she whispered with conviction, echoing both a warning to herself and a promise for acceptance as she prepared to unveil the truths that had been withheld for far too long. The moment had arrived to face the depths of her lineage, and uncertainty swirled beautifully around her. What would she find on the other side? The screen flickered with Marcus's message, and Amara's heart raced as the words began to materialize. "We need to meet. There's so much to explain. Your father's legacy isn't just a story, it's your story too." A mix of dread and exhilaration filled her. Could a legacy that had once felt so distant become an intrinsic part of her identity? Shadows of doubt crept in as she contemplated the implications of meeting Marcus. The stakes felt impossibly high. Would she gain clarity or just deeper confusion? Your father's legacy isn't just a story, it's your story too. The words haunted her, echoing in her mind like a dizzying spiral. The concept of a legacy felt foreign, yet here it was, intertwining with every pulse of her anxious heart. "Amara?" Her father's voice sliced through her contemplation, pulling her back into the reality of their small living room. What did Marcus say? Deciding on the immediacy of truth, she turned her phone toward him, her fingers trembling slightly. "He wants to meet. He says it's about you, about everything." His gaze flickered with worry, tempered by a tinge of something else. Fear? Guilt? Through the layers of complexity that swirled between them, a fragile thread of communication began to weave its way through the tension. "Do you trust him?" he asked, the intensity of his question weighing heavily. She hesitated, tracing the contours of her choices. Trust was a risky proposition. It could either illuminate her path or lead her into a deeper labyrinth of despair. The desire for answers screamed louder than her trepidation. "I don't know, but I need to find out," she responded, the words harder than she anticipated. "Then go," he urged gently, "but be aware of what it means. Understand the gravity of stepping into a world that may belong to you." Amara glanced at her reflection in the window beside her, the sunlight casting new possibilities across her face. What did belonging mean to her? She had forged her identity in the shadows of abandon and uncertainty. As she pondered this, a fire ignited within her. Perhaps it was finally time to forge a new chapter, one that could encompass the truths they both shared. "Marcus is still a stranger to me," she confessed, "and yet I can't shake the feeling that he holds the key to a part of my life I've been missing." Her father shifted uncomfortably, the silence stretching between them as they both recognized the precipice she stood upon. This was not merely a meeting. It was a confrontation with the foundation of her existence, an exploration of the silent threads that woven them together, yet kept them apart. "Trust your instincts," he finally said. "Find out what you need. Just be prepared for the reaction, whatever it may be. With that, Amara nodded resolutely. She was ready for transparency, to brave the confrontation that awaited her, and to peel back the layers of her lineage in search of her truth. As the afternoon light waned, she replied to Marcus, confirming a time and place. The choice was made. The decision echoed in her very bones. Stepping beyond the threshold of hesitation was exhilarating, yet terrifying. Her past was about to collide with her present in ways she could never have imagined. When the time came to leave, an array of thoughts tangled in her head. What would she find when she looked deeper into the narrative of her life? What truths lay beneath the surface? Each question seeped into her consciousness, overtaking the small doubts that had previously clouded her mind. As she walked outside, the air felt electric, charged with the possibility of revelations. With every step, she could almost hear the secrets rustling just out of reach. The world broadened around her, an open field of choices stretching far beyond what she had come to know. But a sinking realization hit her with unexpected force. Each revelation would come with its own burdens. The confrontation ahead could reshape her entire reality. By the time she reached Marcus, her heart thudded in anticipation, paving the way for the discussion that awaited. What lay just beyond the door of answers, hidden in shadows, truth or more lies? Amara sat in the chic coffee shop, the dappled sunlight cascading through the large windows illuminating the vibrant colors of her sketchbook. It had been a week since her meeting with Marcus, and her heart still pulsed in rhythm with the uncertainty that enveloped her. When she had agreed to sit down with her father, it had felt like stepping off a precipice into a deep sea of unknowns. Now she was beginning to recognize the invaluable treasure lying beneath those tumultuous waves. As she waited, each tick of the clock resonated in her chest, a reminder of the weight of anticipation. Her father's name loomed larger than life, marked by absence, yet filled with the promise of connection. The chaotic rhythm of her past collided with the exhilaration of new beginnings, forming a complex tapestry of identity woven with distinct threads: pain, hope, and courage. When he finally walked in, her pulse quickened, their eyes locking over the crowded cafe. There was a softness in his gaze, a silent acknowledgment of shared histories, however painful those histories might be. Today marked a significant emotional milestone. Today would dictate the course of their relationship henceforth. "Amara," he said, a hint of vulnerability in his voice. It felt as if he was carrying an entire world on his shoulders, one filled not only with regrets, but with the weight of desire for healing. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. Let's cut to the chase." Amara's voice was steady, carrying both firmness and newfound confidence. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind 1,000 times, and she was ready to confront the past without fear. "You said you wanted to be honest, so let's start there. What do you have to say? What does your legacy mean for me?" As he sat down, she could see his internal battle. He was a man who had built empires yet seemed painfully inadequate at dismantling his own disconnection. Amara sensed the jagged edges of their conversation beginning to take shape. "I've made mistakes," he began, each word hesitating like a fragile bird taking flight. "But part of my legacy, my hope, is that you wouldn't feel the burden of my choices. I've kept too many secrets from you, from the very beginning." The vulnerability in his voice stirred something deep within her. Amara had spent so long feeling like an outsider in her own story, and even now, facing the man who had helped shape that narrative, she felt cracks forming in her long-held defenses. This wasn't merely about the money or the privilege he represented, it was about authenticity. What secrets, she pressed, intent on uncovering the depths to which his absence had shaped her life? "You don't get to distance yourself anymore." Your mother, he paused, the name almost unsaid. There are things I never revealed about her past, choices we made that altered everything. I believed I was protecting you by keeping them hidden, but I see now how misguided that was. At that moment, Amara felt the kaleidoscope of her emotions shift. Anger brushed against a growing wave of empathy. He was still trying to shield her, even in the face of confrontation. She had woven her own identity from the fabric of her grandmother's teachings, but those teachings had been woven through silence, silence that had echoed through her mother's decisions. "Stop telling me you were trying to protect me," she interjected, her voice sharp yet possessing a fierce determination. "You left me without a choice at all. Do you see how your absence shaped my life? I had to create myself from scratch. The anger, the confusion, it taught me resilience, but it shouldn't have defined who I became." His eyes glistened with unspilled tears. "I never wanted to be the reason you felt unworthy." Amara guided her focus inward. She had felt unworthy. She'd felt it with every brushstroke of her art, every time she doubted her own narrative. But she was not that girl anymore. "This isn't about blame anymore. I want to understand what this means for us now. How can I embrace what you want to uncover without losing sight of who I am?" A moment of silence stretched between them, brimming with the weight of unspoken understandings. They were beginning to craft something new together, one that didn't erase the past, but rather repurposed it. "I want to support your dreams," he declared, vulnerability soaking his words. "Let me be present in your life, truly present, whatever that means." With her heart racing, Amara looked deep into his eyes, the reflection shimmering with uncertainty, yet a newfound partnership. There was work to be done, truths to unravel, and legacies to build. But perhaps this was where healing could begin. "I'll need time to process," she replied, allowing a soft release of the tension that had settled around them. "But I'll accept your presence if it's honest. I want to create a new legacy, one that derives strength from both our pasts." Relief washed over her father's face, a tangible recognition of purpose illuminating his features. "Together we can build something meaningful out of this." Standing together, they began to forge a new relationship founded on accountability and openness. Amara felt the gears of her transformation turning, propelling her toward self-acceptance and authenticity. She would not become trapped within someone else's expectations, but would instead craft relationships that honored her own journey. As she walked away from that cafe, she embraced the clarity blooming within her, a recognition that she could honor her past and engage with her future without being consumed by either. This moment solidified her transformation from a girl burdened by absence into an artist ready to paint her own story with vibrant colors of agency and resilience. She'd built the foundations of her future, and now the dream landscape she had so fervently sketched in her mind began to come to life. In that becoming, she felt empowered, a legacy unfolding before her, nurtured by the strength of understanding and healing. And like any artist, she would continue to create, to shape her world, and to embrace the complexities that unfolded along the way, sculpting each moment into something uniquely hers. Now is the time to connect deeply with these narratives of transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire and uplift. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure we keep bringing you these powerful stories. Comment your thoughts and reactions about Amara's journey. We want to hear your theories and insights. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this incredible conclusion. You need to support the channel. This is the moment to show your commitment to personal overcoming stories. Don't wait even one more second to share the inspiration.